Recently, I made a video about a project that I'm doing in collaboration with another artist. That I'm going to refer to as the Movement Project, and I'm sharing videos related to that on this channel in a series that I'm going to either refer to as movement sketchbook videos or machine related videos. This one is called Machines in Grass or Machines in the Grass. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to title it, but this is the process of making my illustration style artwork into contemporary fine art through using concepts and work that's been developed over time with the person who I'm partnered up with for the collaboration. So for this piece, I have drawn this collage several times. In fact, to be honest, this piece is a couple of collages put together. What I did was I took several pieces of farming machinery, I pieced them together on the computer and made a composition out of these different pieces that I thought was quite nice and worked as an image. And then I've started to draw those and try to develop them in different ways. Sometimes the drawings can seem a little bit sterile. You know, they're just lines. They don't really make anything happen. So in order to break it out of that state of being just a line drawing or me just copying my own photo collage onto paper in either pencil or ink, I've started to try and push it in different directions. Now, I started off with a pencil sketch of 2 collages put together. The bulk of it is one collage that almost looked like a spaceship kind of shape. And the other one was just a tall, cage-like device used in farming. I'd have to check up my reference book of what it's called. I'm not perfectly familiar with all of the machines yet, but that is something which I thought would really elevate the piece if I have it, you know, towering above the rest of the collage, which was lower down. And I had certain elements as well. There was something shooting off to the right and to the left, which gave it a bit of balance. I think it really works well with the collage because there's a big bulk of different, you know, teeth-like looking things and propellers and different working parts and, you know, all bolts and screws and things which make up machinery, which is really interesting and complicated looking. And then to have this towering structure come off it and things shooting off the side, it just makes it a fun composition. So I drew that in pencil, then I inked over it in line, and after that I thought I need to dirty it up and give it some texture. So I got some charcoal sticks, I rubbed those over certain areas to try and give it that roughness and that uneven coverage of tone. I didn't want it to be flat, but after I'd done it, it did look a little bit flat. So I also have pastel blocks, kind of big chunky blocks that you can buy. They're a Derwent tin of different, they do charcoal and pastel blocks. Really big chunky, I think they're called XL, I don't know, blocks. And I took the black one of those and I just rubbed it with my finger. It just crumbled, you know, into dust. There was little chippings that came off, but I tried to not be too fussed about how it was breaking up so long as it wasn't too big. And when I was rubbing it, it was mainly just dust coming off. I thought that's quite nice and interesting. I put tone in certain bits of the darker areas in the shadow spaces. So having this dust drop onto the surface gave me an idea that I could really elevate this piece if I just took a risk and decided to add a wash to the piece. So that means that once all the pigment is down, to just tip some water on top and see what happens. So I got a bottle of water and a little tentative at first, but started to do a few droplets and splashes. Now this isn't watercolor paper and it's not the type of paper that's really made for mixed media. It's just printer paper. But that's what I was doing. It was too late. That's how I'd started working on the piece. So I thought, let's just push through, see what happens. And I'd taken a couple of pieces of blue roll, folded it up and used that to push around the water and the pigment, and that's what started to give it a bit of life. It left the charcoal, the ink and the pencil underneath, and it pushed this pastel, this soft pastel black, around into a bluish grey, and it was just a really nice energy that started to explode out of this drawing. As it is, it's really quite an interesting piece, and I may frame and exhibit that as it is. But my initial concept for this was to relate it to the farmland beyond just being machinery and a big pile of different pieces and parts forced together. So my idea was to cut it into strips, not from top to bottom, but into kind of blades of grass. And that was my intention from the beginning. Now, thankfully, I'd spoken to a friend of mine whose advice I like to get from time to time, and she told me not to do that with the original, but instead to scan it and print it off as a copy first and cut that up into pieces. That way I don't lose the original. I can still retain the first piece, and then I can play with the prints afterwards. That was a great idea, and that's what I ended up doing. This work so far has been difficult to really consider where I want it to end up. It's just a process of trying things, and at first I was a little too precious over the drawings, and I didn't know how I wanted it to end up, so I didn't push for a finished product. I just got it to a certain place and thought, okay, I'll sit and think about that for a while, and it's just stayed like that. So I do have several drawings that I need to bring out and play with in this similar way that I've done with this. And until then, they're going to remain in this static state that they're in at the moment, which is just a place in limbo between the original concept and being projected into a more developed place, I suppose. A lot of these ideas are trying to wrestle with the land, the machinery, the farmers, and the messaging. And the messaging is something difficult because I don't want to have an obvious statement in there. I don't have an obvious statement that I'm trying to make. It's more experience-based and an admiration, observations, and appreciation for everything that I've been witnessing and that I've been taking part in. This is several visits to farms, also going and being invited to cattle markets, and to speak with farmers at their homes and just discuss their experience and to try and make connections and have conversations about the reality of the lifestyle and the industry. I've conducted several interviews. They will be used as a kind of background texture for the exhibition. I've not worked on that yet. There's a lot of footage. I filmed as much as possible. Now, I also purchased a drone with the intention of filming farms, but the drone that I bought was under £1,000, so it's not a high-end drone, but it's good. It's just a little vulnerable when it comes to a breeze or any kind of air current in elevated elevated into the air, into the sky. I need to be careful that it doesn't just get carried away. That's happened even when it's not flying very high. So I'm trying to make sure that I consider what the weather is like before I go and do things like this. But I'm hoping to have drone footage, camera footage, and several other things. Anyway, when it comes to this actual piece itself, I do this idea where I have a piece of cardboard and I draw on the cardboard the blades of grass. I tried to draw it in pen as well, because I initially had the idea that if I draw it in black on the cardboard, I'll be able to see it through the paper. That wasn't the case. I couldn't see it through the paper. But it doesn't really matter. I thought, well, I'll draw on the paper blades of grass, and I'll cut the paper into a grass-like shape, and then stick it on top of the cardboard that's already been cut into blades of grass. And because I'd cut it, the top part that I removed was cut into blades of grass as well, because it is just jagged edges. So when you remove the top part, it's the same sort of thing. So I stick the paper onto the cardboard, and then I have the cardboard from the top to stick underneath. And I thought that made quite a nice layering effect. I think it's quite an interesting idea. It's something which I'm planning on developing further, but this is part of how I'm trying to present my style of artwork in a more contemporary framework. It's not easy. It's something which takes consideration and try to develop concepts which aren't too obvious. I don't want anything where people think, oh well, there's no ambiguity about this, because anything that is too clear and on the nose isn't going to be interesting or engaging for an audience. So I'm trying to ensure that when people visit the exhibition, they can look at something and admire it and consider it, and not necessarily feel preached to in either direction, because it's not meant to scream any kind of anti or pro farming messaging. It's more about the different sides and aspects of agriculture, and how the public are so unfamiliar with the practices and the processes. It's really interesting stuff. I've met some amazing people. So this is one of the pieces. I did it 2 times, once with the cardboard and once with the paper. But I think it's on cardboard as well. Yeah, I did it on cardboard first. That's more, you can see the cardboard, and then I did it on a cereal box. That's cardboard as well, but it's thinner cardboard, where it mainly just looks like paper, so it worked a little bit easier. It was interesting. I think I'm going to try both again for the exhibition. I have some large cardboard boxes that I've kept hold of so that I can do this idea and hopefully exhibit it and make it look decent and not cheap. I don't want it to look like someone's craft project. I want it to look engaging and interesting. So that's my idea. But I've also still got the drawing, because I think that could be framed and exhibited on its own as well. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, share this with friends and family. I really want the channel to grow, and with your help it will. Thanks for watching.